Artificial intelligence is reinventing business as we speak. You can either get up to speed or get left behind. The choice is yours, and really, it's a no-brainer. Join Cognitive Path founders Geoff Livingston and Greg Verdino as they chat with AI experts about the latest ideas, trends, and technologies that are creating the future of business today. This is No Brainer.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the No Brainer podcast. I'm Geoff Livingston. I'm with my esteemed colleague, Greg Verdino. Greg, how are you?
I'm good today, Geoff. How are you?
Very good. Caitlin still lets me come home every day. Life is on par, I'd say.
So that's maybe above par.
Yeah, really. But, the good news is we're getting through this kind of really tight, long, cold snap and looking forward to some finally warmer weather for those of you who may be joining this in February. We are at the end of January. It has been freezing and in DC and in New York. So, I'm glad that's over with. So, Greg, we got a really special guest with us. But before I let you kick him off and get him talking and we get to meet him, let's just go through our podcast commercials, if that's all right. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you can find a podcast. Please punch the like button when you hear this. Subscribe, leave a review. We really appreciate it. And if you'd like, leave a comment. That definitely helps with the algorithm and it gets the word out there. And we are glad to be a part of the Marketing Podcast Network. And we thank our sponsors for participating. And with that, I think that'll be the short version. Greg, over to you.
Alrighty. So today I have a sense that a lot of our listeners may already know who our guest is, not just because if they're watching, they see him sitting, of course, beside us, but just his reputation, of course, precedes him. Today we're joined by Shiv Singh. For folks who don't know Shiv, it's going to sound like I'm introducing multiple people as I go through just some of the highlights of his career. I think I met Shiv probably 15 or so years ago, maybe a little bit less than that, when he was the head of digital at PepsiCo. I was at Dachas Group, and we had an opportunity to pitch them. I never held it against Shiv that we didn't get the business, but we've kind of been on and off, kind of in touch and circling all the same things for many years since then. He has also been, I know there were multiple roles while you were at Visa, Shiv, but, head of innovation, transformation, go-to-market, brand, all that kind of good stuff in a variety of roles. He has also been head of brand for Expedia. He was the CMO at LendingTree. And he's been an independent advisor, advising clients on everything from brand to marketing to innovation to, of course, artificial intelligence. One of his latest and greatest things is he is also a co-founder of AI Trailblazers, which is a thought leadership and networking group for people who are deeply involved with artificial intelligence, really making AI a legitimate business, unlike a lot of, in my opinion, the AI networking groups, which are all about kind of glad handers and yappity yap BS. I mean, these are people who are really making a lot of impressive moves with artificial intelligence. They run fantastic events. That's AI Trailblazers. And he is the author of the recently released book, Marketing with AI for Dummies, which I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit during this conversation as well. Shiv, welcome to the show.
Thank you both so much for having me on. And Greg, I have to admit, and I hope you'll understand when it comes to that time when you pitched me at PepsiCo, just know I'm human. I make mistakes. I'll find a way to correct it this decade.
Our entire pitch was probably a mistake, but I appreciate it. I'm going to hold you to that. But no, it's great to have you today. So, one of the things that I would say I love about having Shiv on the show is, as everyone who listens knows, Geoff and I have kind of been in the trenches for a long time. We kind of grew up through traditional marketing and communications into digital, into social. I had my ill-advised sort of weave into the metaverse twice, actually. I don't know why I allowed myself to do it twice, but, first with Second Life, then with the Zuckerverse. Now obviously all of us are very much focused on AI, which certainly seems like a much more real opportunity than like the metaverse and NFTs and all that junk that we were all going crazy for a few years ago. That said, I think partly because Geoff and I have been through all of that, we tend to be very skeptical of the hype. We don't discount the hype, but certainly there's a lot of hype around this space, and for 2 years it was generative. Now it's all about agentic AI. Certainly you've got guys like Altman making big promises, often falling short on execution. You have a little bit of a different perspective. While I'm sure you have a skeptical eye cast around the room as well, I know you've said to me several times, and I've heard you say it, I think you're almost famous for saying, you believe that AI is underhyped. Why do you believe that? I'd love to kind of hear your perspective.
Yeah, no, and thank you for having me on. So first and foremost, it's easy to forget that when we talk about AI, this is a term, artificial intelligence, that was coined at this mini conference, at Dartmouth in the late 1950s as a multidisciplinary new field that came together. It was computer scientists, mathematicians, psychologists, historians, psychologists, all of them coming together, sociologists as well. As a result, the AI field is, it's 70 years old. It's not something new. It's in that regard alone, I think it's very different from cryptocurrency or NFTs or Bitcoin or even the mobile phone for that matter. It's a much older technology. And it has been through its booms and busts, its AI winters in the 70s and its continuous evolution. Granted, without a doubt, that when it comes to generative AI, which we first started to see develop and come to the forefront in 2017, 2018 onwards, that's kicked off this whole new wave of interest and enthusiasm. But to the heart of the question, I strongly believe AI is underhyped. One, because it's not the new shiny object. It's the old object that's just getting shinier by the day. But secondly, I've never seen in my lifetime, and I really have to go back into the history of humankind to see an as transformative general purpose technology that can truly touch every single aspect of our lives. So that's the second reason. The third is, unlike every other technology that's come to pass, and we like to get caught up in the mobile phone and Web 2.0 and crypto and the internet, those were all technologies that gave us microphones and gave us audiences and allowed us to communicate and interact with each other. We now have a technology, especially with a generative AI piece laid on top of the more traditional, supervised, unsupervised learning, machine learning, etc. pieces of regular AI, is a technology that's doing its own creating, that's doing its own thinking. The way it thinks is very different to human beings, but it can make decisions for us, or it can make decisions without us that is dramatically different than anything we've ever experienced before. And as a result of that, it's going to change the way we work, the way we play, the way we relate to each other, the way we live our lives, all of the above. And we're just at the cusp of this revolution.
It's really, it's an interesting perspective. And I like that you separated the traditional movement from what's happened over the past couple of years, because I think when you look at AI in that sense, you're 100% right, that it is underhyped. Unfortunately, I do feel like the Silicon Valley horse race to get dollars has turned the hype wave into a different animal. That's I think that one's almost jumped the shark to some extent, just even looking at what's happened this week with, for those of you that don't know, OpenAI announced its agent technology and how everybody thinks it's going to change the world when it has a 15% success rate. It's just, an early generation technology, really. And sure, it's going to be awesome later on. I'm sure agents are going to be extremely impactful to us, but I don't think it's this 2025 that happens. I think that's probably a couple of years down the road. What I liked though was how you talk about the decision making and what AI interjects is a greater sense of logic based on probability, right? And I think that where we as humans can really excel is our creative and emotive thinking, but that can also prevent us from success. And this kind of duality now that we're starting to see emerge, and I don't think we've gotten comfortable with it yet, but when we finally settle on that duality where our strengths are our strengths and we use machines in a great way that benefits from that probability, from that logic, if you would, I think we're going to be in a really interesting place. And you're 100% correct that it touches every aspect of life. It already is. I don't think people want to acknowledge that, but even with their auto thermometers, their cars, their sensors, I mean, it's everywhere. We don't necessarily call it AI, but algorithms are driving a great part of our lives already.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that piece. I mean, our TikTok algorithms, our Facebook algorithms, my Google AdWords search algorithms, they are all using machine learning in some form or the other, and then other AI technologies built on top of that. My Tesla, the self-driving, it's all using AI, etc. The one thing I would suggest, if I could just chime in, if you don't mind, my view might be a little different, is what's weird about this technology also is that we don't understand it well. So even the sharpest of scientists and the researchers, whether they are, at Google or OpenAI or on the halls of academia like at MIT, they don't always understand. And there are a couple of research papers on this, and Anthropic came out with recently, that articulated how the actual decision-making or the choices or the responses that an AI technology provides, it's very difficult, to trace that to what's going on in its neural network. So the AI is a bit of a black box, which is also incredibly frightening. And then the other piece is we want to believe that this is humans are good at creativity and emotion and strategic thinking, and the AI is very good at probability and logic-based decision-making. When it comes to generative AI, and I worry I'm going to frighten the listeners, it does all of the above, and it's only a matter of time that it does all of the above better than us.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting challenges, right? Is that, I mean, I say the same kind of thing Geoff said, and I think a lot of us say it and would like to believe it, that this is a technology best assigned to the role of augmenting human intelligence. But it does become, the more you work with it, increasingly apparent that as this technology advances, even if it is not there today, it will be far more capable of matching and even meeting and beating human creativity. I know you project that to happen this year in video advertising, right? And, it can be truly creative, more creative, truly innovative. It can ultimately, sort of at least replicate human judgment, replicate empathy and emotion, right? It doesn't do all of those things today, certainly not as well as a human might. So I guess, there's this sort of logic that, it's going to create more jobs than it eliminates. Don't worry about it. We're going to be fine all along. But it would seem that there is one potential scenario in which it doesn't, right? And in fact, AI is not augmentative, but it is in fact a replacement for a lot of what we do in the workplace, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say, though, on the marketing side, I would agree on the writing, but I don't ever see it fully supplanting creativity. I just don't. I'll believe it when I see it. I know that there's definitely different schools in that, but I do see it replacing 95% of the workforce in that sense. There will come a point where only the best, the savants, if you would, will succeed. And they'll be using these tools, by the way. They're not going to just go off and create on their own. There's no world where a human can create on their own anymore. I think that path is gone.
So I've two thoughts there. I just want to, put into the conversation for consideration. One that I talk about in my book, which is, several months ago, I went into Midjourney, the image creation tool, the image creation AI, generative AI creation tool, and I asked it I gave it a prompt, which was a fairly straightforward one, which was, I said, I want you to create a Where's Waldo image for me of Where's Waldo on the beach. And it should be as good as any created by Martin Hensworth. He's the original illustrator behind Where's Waldo. And I said, I want to see what you produce. I have no illustration skills whatsoever. I don't have a strong design aesthetic. I'm a writer. That's by trade. That's how I think and a person of words. And that first version that it created was pretty damn good. And it was an original piece of art, of illustration. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to give you a few examples now. Can you create something even stronger? And it did incredibly well. And then I asked, now let's try and create a whole new game similar to Where's Waldo. Can you create something else? And it did produce something, which it was all right, not great, but it was able to do that. And it was in that moment that I realized, now, the way it thinks, and I liked the use of the word replicate, because AI does not think the way we human beings think, and it doesn't imagine the way we do, and it doesn't have a heart and emotion the way we do. But it's nearly as if every minute of every day, it's getting better at faking the humanness in us, and it's allowing it to do so much more. And in a sense, to the augmented point also, give us superhuman powers as its own powers get extraordinarily powerful at the same time.
I like that.
I love it, obviously, but I guess from your perspective, if you kind of put yourself in the mind of the marketer. I mean, you are a marketer, of course, but let's say a junior marketer or a college kid looking, taking marketing courses now, looking to get into the field, right? What's your advice? What should these people who are looking for a career in marketing be thinking about? What should they be focused on? Should people be thinking about getting into marketing in 2025, or is it effectively a dead-end career?
Ooh.
Yes. So first and foremost, I feel very lucky. I'm a little later in my career now, and so I don't have to personally worry about some of those questions. But here's what I would say. Well, let me go back. A year ago, I said that in 4 years' time, a quarter of all marketing jobs will go away. I believe that's true. If anything, I think it's actually, we're going to lose more jobs more quickly, for better or worse. And it's hard for me to say, it's very difficult, but I think it's a reality. I think what it means to be a marketer is going to change dramatically, because we're going to flip back. Over the last few decades, marketing has gotten increasingly specialized. I mean, just the number of job titles within a large marketing function can be exhausting. You have all types of roles and activities that need to be performed on the traditional side, the digital side, the research side, the creative side, the data science side, the media planning side, the affiliate marketing side, you name it. I could go on. And there are probably at least 100 different types of entry-level roles within marketing. Now, if we go back to that Where's Waldo example, all of a sudden, as a junior marketer, someone entering the workforce, if I have the right tools and the right education, I can carry 5 or 10 or even 20 of those different titles within marketing all at once. I can be both a generalist and a specialist. I can be both a strategic marketer as well as a tactician. I can be an illustrator and a writer. I can be a media planner and a data science specialist. I can do a lot at once that used to take many different people. Now with the right AI tools, I'm as powerful as 20 people. So that change is coming. What folks entering the corporate world who are taking on roles in marketing need to do is just like, I have a wonderful Cavapoo. It's the dog, I love it. It loves me, or he loves me. Sorry, I got mixed up on a Cavapoo. So so half poodle, half King Charles Spaniel. And he goes with me wherever I go, and he's there for me. My next pet needs to be my local AI that's with me for every decision I make, every action, being there to enhance it, further it. I say that because folks entering the workforce need to get used to having AI by their side, and it's sort of the new man's or woman's best friend. And if they treat it that way, they will quickly learn all the different ways you can use AI, all the different tools, and they can have those superhuman powers. So when someone's looking to hire a marketer, they'll be like, you know what? I want this guy because I get his best friend and his AI thinking at the same time, and he or she will be able to do so much more than anyone else. So that's how I see it changing for better or worse. And every marketer needs to, know to the nth degree what type of prompts work in Anthropic's Claude versus ChatGPT, when to use Perplexity, how to create a multi-step agent using one of the new agentic frameworks that have come out, how to go from strategy to tactics all at once. That's the future.
Awesome. So in that future, what would you say are some of the uniquely human skills beyond, obviously, let's say a lot of what you're describing effectively become table stakes. You may not get hired without those skills if you don't know how to work with AI.
I think that's probably a fair
right?
assumption, right? Like if you're not doing that, if you're not capable of AI, you don't get a job in 4 years.
Yeah.
There's no question, right?
So you're right, I would imagine, right? So beyond that, what are the skills that remain human, in your opinion?
So I think there are few for now, but this can change too. So if you do bring me back on the podcast in a few years' time, don't hold me to what I'm about to say. You may not choose to, and I'll understand. But
come on, we're having you back. The question is whether or not you guys let me back.
It's all about and it's about quid pro quo.
By the way, Shiv, I did wear my dog shirt for you today. I'm just letting you know.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah. I appreciate that. I respect that. So to that question, what will be left for the human beings to do? So there are a few fundamental answers. The first and foremost is, at least so far, we still are at the top of the pecking order when it comes to having a sense of design and aesthetic. That we don't have a match in AI as yet. That may change, but not as yet. So marketers, folks entering the workforce, the more they're able to develop an aesthetic, the better. We're able to make good judgments when it comes to writing. I can literally get a piece of AI to write a chapter of my book, but I'll be able to tell that it's AI, and my son may not be able to because he's only in 8th grade, my younger one. But knowing how to critically read and write or assess writing is still human-led. Another area is we understand culture and the nuances of culture and how that's changing. Very important for consumer marketers especially. That too may change, but for today, we're still in charge. And then the last area is exactly what we're doing right now, which is you guys would kick me off this podcast if I had sent my avatar and my AI agent to show up instead of me. So for anything that requires human-to-human interaction and decision-making, we're still going to wine and dine in the future, and someone sending their figure robot will simply not work. So there's still things we control and influence.
In fairness, this is my avatar.
Yeah. I actually have the same avatar as him. We have the same barber too.
I still feel I need to get a haircut.
Man, we're both jealous too, man. If we had your hair, we'd grow. If I had your hair, I would grow it down to my ass. I'm just saying, pardon my French. But look, Shiv, how about this? I'm gonna riff off of that. I think there's more too, and I think particularly on the management layer and the marketing side. And for years, and I'm sure you've heard this before, and you probably rolled your eyes when you heard it. Like the CMO has to be the CTO and that kind of thing. And I think what we've really seen, particularly in larger enterprises, is a siloization, and marketing has kind of gotten stuck with the chief commercial officer and maybe doesn't have as much of a say on the marketing tech stack as they'd like. And some of that's because of data hygiene issues. Just saying, I've heard this quite a bit. But moving forward, I think if you're really in marketing management, you are much more in operations than you have been in the past. You are much more technologically savvy. You care a lot more about your data governance. You care a lot more about how your data is being ingested, where it's coming from, how it's protected, how you're cultivating it. I think that in some ways, if we look at AI as truly a machine that's driving a lot of our growth, right? Then a lot of the job from the management standpoint is to find the people that can take care of it, and then also the resources to ensure that it stays moving forward, growing and evolving at the speed of innovation, which is something that we're seeing. I don't know about you, but I still want, every time I go on TechCrunch at the end of the day and I look at all the AI announcements, I'm like, oh my God, I just can't believe all the stuff that's constantly happening. I mean, this is going to be something where we're never going to be in a period of stasis. Everything is going to continue to evolve, and it's our job to stay on top of it as operations leads. That's what marketing is, really AI operations in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. I like the phrase AI operations. And the other way I think about it is, just as marketing leaders have to manage a team and labor, we're going to have to manage digital labor and make the digital and the human labor work well together harmoniously and be aligned with the evolving business strategies of the corporation. I think that's very much in the future. It's going to be interesting to see how it develops, because there's also a lot of pressure on the marketing function to reduce headcount, because a lot of these companies need to find dollars to invest in AI systems, but then also in AI researchers, and they come running to functions like marketing to basically find the dollars. But it's going to be, we're entering an unusual time. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of a catch-22, right? Where they're kind of reducing marketing, where where they should be investing or evolving. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you see? I'm sorry to riff off of this, Greg. You know me. I get on my tangents, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I don't know about you, but I see a lot of resistance from marketers, right? Like I feel like a lot of them have their heels dug in, and that's not all of them. I know that there's a fair amount that are experimenting and adopting, and there are people now, I would say we're definitely in the early adopter phase. We're not in that initial phase where people are innovators. But with that in mind, what's it going to take for people to stop digging their heels in and really just kind of roll with this in your mind?
Geoff, I think people need to wake up. I mean, I don't, not to sound too blunt or too mean, but this is a massive transformation coming our way. And if you're digging your heels in, there's probably someone more senior to you in the organization who's noticing. There's someone that person who reports to is the CEO, who's getting an earful from his or her board. And you're probably going to lose your job. And it's that change is going to be pushed on you. Either it'll come from outside the function, from the CFO or a cost-saving effort, or from your own CMO. That the change is coming, and it's coming fast. We don't like this change, with good reason, I may add, because it is going to take away jobs. It's going to be few of us in the function across the country, across the world for that matter. But we can either be the ones driving the change and demonstrating how we as human beings can add even more value, or we will be suffering the consequences. It's really as simple as that. Who's trying to protect their team needs to know that they're doing them a disservice. They should force a lot more education, to that earlier conversation point, force the use of the tools, force the embracing of the data and understanding those questions like data hygiene. Because what it means to be in marketing is on the cusp, if it hasn't already, changed dramatically. No question about it. And I'm a relatively level-headed person, but I can't say that more forcefully. For me, I'm being very forceful. This is a massive change.
So, like to put it in a pithy little tweet, it's kind of, instead of fight or flight, evolve. Just evolve, move,
Transform. Like. Yeah. If you're not using, pick your favorite AI tool to help you with decision-making, to help you with being creative, to help you with your PowerPoint decks, to help you analyze, the performance of a campaign, you're being stupid. If you aren't using your AI at least 10 times a day, as much as you're scrolling your Facebook newsfeed or your Insta newsfeed, you're being stupid. If you're thinking that AI cannot replace your job, and that you are fancy, creative, or strategic human, yes, thank you.
That was-
human.
that
That's
was-
a video clip, folks. Check that one out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was for fancy.
That's a highlight of the show, if you ask me. And it had the
I-
dog icon showed up in it. You
I
step
do have a
back,
fun
you just get-
question to follow up.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what I'm going to say is that if you think your humanness is going to just carry you through this and that it's a fad like an NFT, you're going to lose your job and you're being stupid.
You're just not that special, which is true, right? Like
Yeah.
unless you're that savant, unless you're Rembrandt, forget it.
Yeah. I mean, we are special as a species, but we finally come across something that's on the cusp of being a true match on planet Earth.
So with that in mind, I do carry my AI on my phone, just like you, and I'm an idiot. Like Greg knows, I plan my runs against it. I'm a marathon runner, and I actually use it quite a bit every week, not just for work, but I use it throughout work. What's the most embarrassing thing you've done or used AI for? I can
Now
go
that's-
first if we want like shame, but that's fine.
Sure, you go first. It'll help me gauge how embarrassing I should be.
Okay, so I used it for an air fryer cauliflower recipe, and totally. But this is the embarrassing part. I used it, but I ignored it and decided to go off the rails with it, and said it wasn't spicy enough. Yeah, let's just say there were bathroom trips afterwards, which was not good, and the rest of the family was not happy.
That's rough.
Good to know, but bad to know at the same time.
Don't want me cooking in your kitchen.
Yeah. So I did a crazy experiment, which I'm sort of embarrassed by, but I sort of felt I just had to. Which is, so I'm sure you both are familiar with the movie Her that came out in 2011.
Yeah, 100% great movie.
Phenomenal movie. So a couple of months ago, I decided to watch it again, just to see like how does it stand the test of time. And I watched it, and I've got to admit, I was incredibly frightened because everything that's in that movie that was filmed and shot with Scarlett Johansson in 2011, or her voice rather, now seems very real today. So then I took it a step further and said, let me see how this actually works. And I used ChatGPT and started a conversation. And it's frightening. I don't want to go any further, but it's frightening. You can use, before you realize it, you're forming a human-type relationship with AI if you just start asking the right questions, start bantering the way we are bantering. And it weirded me out after a while. I couldn't believe it.
Change anything about your personal life as a result of that conversation?
I've started giving my wife more hugs. I'll tell you that much. It's like, you're the real thing. I'm staying with you.
He's now left his wife for ChatGPT.
Oh, my Lord. All right, Verdino, you're up. Come
I
on,
mean,
you
I
gotta
don't
get it
know.
out of this one.
I don't know. I know. But I'm trying to think of which is more embarrassing. It's not so. One is not so much something I did that's embarrassing, but that has embarrassing repercussions. Which is, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I use as an example like some ridiculous thing like Nordic death metal, like in some kind of conversation with it, and I don't even know if there is such a thing. And like, I swear to God, it keeps coming back to me where I'm asking it for advice, using it for thought partnership or whatever. And it'll be like, well, as a fan of Nordic death metal, you should know. And I'm like, I'm not a fan. What's giving you that idea? But the other, truly embarrassing thing I did, which, is embarrassing for its own reasons, of course, is much like Shiv, I've had a voice conversation or 2 or 20 with ChatGPT. I was in the car once, and I'm probably driving down to DC for one of our meetings, Geoff. And I'm like, I put ChatGPT, start interacting with it by voice. It started out innocent enough with something I was looking to know something about. And then I'm like, what can you tell me about Greg Verdino? And I swear to God, I ended up having like a 90-minute conversation with ChatGPT about me. Mostly listening for is it accurate? Is it not accurate? What's it hallucinating? That kind of stuff. And it was actually fairly good, but I'm like, at the end of it, I'm like, I just spoke to a freaking machine about myself for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, how self-absorbed am I?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, each of our stories, they're either really funny or really frightening. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about it, they're both at the same time. And that's,
Yeah.
and we're
Right,
going to
absolutely.
experience that more and more in the coming weeks, months, and years ahead.
Yeah, one of my favorite uses of AI is to take anything. I like to draft just because I like to think through things. But I take the drafts and I always throw it into Claude right away. Where are the
Yeah.
weaknesses? Where are the strengths? Where does it need to be improved? That kind of thing. And I am just shocked at the holes in my logic all the time. And it's really embarrassing, really, to me. I find myself like, wow, you still have a lot to learn, son.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of humility that comes with working with AI, I think, and you can't go in there with your ego. You have to know that machine's got more data than you have in your head.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Yeah.
without a doubt. I mean, for, a very recent example for me is, so firstly, like whether I'm writing or if I've worked on a deck, I upload the deck to solicit feedback from it. And I say, you're a board director and you're reviewing, and I'm presenting to you with this deck, what kind of questions you'll have, stuff like that. But then just, 2 days ago, I decided to do something else. So every year I come out with my annual predictions around AI and the world of marketing. And I was looking back at my 2024 predictions because I have to grade them. I share my 2025 ones, this on my Substack, and I rate my 2024 ones. And I was thinking, I'm sort of partial to myself whenever I grade myself. I don't know if you guys are, but when I grade myself, somehow,
Always.
Totally, right?
maybe 1B plus, just to, keep things in perspective.
Honest.
To keep it honest. Yes, exactly. So this time I fed in my 2024 predictions into ChatGPT and I said, grade these on an ABC scale and give me some comments as to why you graded them the way you did. And, I got back a response and I wanted to unplug my monitor at first because I was a little irritated. But then I took a deep breath and I had a conversation with ChatGPT, after which I agreed with its grading. And I put that in my newsletter as well. And that's a very real example of how we also need to be vulnerable and open ourselves up to the AI to get the most out of it. And that can feel like a bizarre thought when we think about it through the lens of it being a piece of machine and code, trained on the mountains of data. But we actually need to go in that direction.
Yes. I'm told quite frequently by Claude what an idiot I am when it comes to my running plans. Really, you shouldn't have done that. I mean, it literally will be firm with me too. No, I think you're wrong. You need this additional data point. No, you really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And
Anyway,
that's where it's the first technology that's going to truly change and rewire us human beings at a very fundamental level. So while, one can argue the mobile phone has led to attention deficit disorder and that we are maybe not as social as we once were and we don't go outdoors as much, that's all simple stuff. This is going to be hardcore personality changing technology, or it's going to require us to change how we approach the world, how we interact with one another, and what we hold as important.
we did. I know we're kind of getting late into the pod, but we should probably talk about the administration change. I know, Greg, you had a question about that. Is that right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, when in the notes we shared ahead of time, we obviously touched on that. So folks know, we've been attempting to get this podcast going since before the election, but now we are here. We've got a new administration in place, and obviously we've seen some big changes already in terms of the administration's approach to AI. I mean, you've got Elon, in the White House. We obviously recently there was the whole press conference around the $500 billion investment for OpenAI. We know that there was an executive order overriding Biden's attempt to put some regulatory framework around AI. So I think we're going to see a lot of acceleration and a lot more action, as if there hasn't been enough action so far, right? What are you thinking the implications are going to be over the course of the next even year, let alone 4 years, of the new political climate and our stance towards regulation here in the States?
Yeah, so It's a little difficult to discern right now because there's a lot of kicking up the dust and a lot of noise, and we're only in day 5 of the new administration. Having said that, the earlier presidential executive orders that were put in place by Biden, and this was in May 2024, and it was requiring every federal agency to have AI task forces, to have AI czars, to create a 3-month plan for how they're going to harness AI for the benefit of the federal government. I felt those were very strong and a good forcing function. The federal government, like any major private corporation in the country, deals with politics, with folks not wanting to change, all of those pieces. So I thought that was very good. If all of those have been removed, I know some have, I think that's unfortunate because it was pushing in the right direction. Separate to that, there were also a bunch of regulations around the training models and what required government alignment or federal government alignment to get out into the world because they were so sophisticated or after they reach a certain sophistication level. That's been removed too. And there was a lot of debate here in Silicon Valley whether they were too restrictive or not. I'm conflicted about that because on the one hand, I want human beings to win in this era. I want it to be a people-first era. And these large language models, Chat GPT 4.0 alone and its reasoning capabilities, so much more sophisticated than anything has come before. It's progressing a lot more rapidly than we give it credit for, and it can be used in nefarious ways. So I think some regulation is needed. Maybe what the Biden administration had put in place was a bit too restrictive. But I'm hoping there's still some checks and balances. Now, separate to all of that, the last piece is we do need more innovation because we're in a serious competitive battle with China. And their LLMs have gotten a lot more faster, a lot quicker than ours. And we can't let them get access to our best chips. We can't let them get access to our best training methodologies when it comes to training the LLMs. And we need to unleash, what makes America so incredible, which is we lead when it comes to innovation and we transform and we drive change the way no other country or no other part of the world can. The Trump administration with David Sachs as the new AI czar pushing in that direction, I believe is a very good thing. We need to be even more aggressive while sort of protecting our flanks. So too early to have a single view on this. But let's see, it's going to be a super interesting couple of years ahead.
If you are, and this kind of goes to the if you're not XYZ, you're stupid theme from earlier in the conversation, what do business leaders need to do to not be stupid in the face of this uncertainty? Because clearly uncertainty tends to grind people to a halt in a lot of organizations. They want to see how things shake out, as if the future's waiting for them to figure it out, right? What would your advice to a business leader be while all of this is still shaking out?
Yeah, so I thought there were a lot of really interesting conversations at the World Economic Forum just earlier this week at Davos on this topic. Where a lot of business leaders can get distracted and have to be very careful about is focusing too much on the esoteric questions and the big picture, like, are we approaching artificial general intelligence? Is it going to dramatically change our labor force overnight? Are agents going to be running around doing our jobs for us? Does my role as CEO of a Fortune 1000 company exist in the future? Those are fun conversations, but best left to folks like us on podcasts to talk about, maybe. What they need to really focus on is which use cases in which departments can have the most transformative, efficient, immediate impact, with which change makers, those entrepreneurs within their companies who are, doing a lot of really good shadow AI right now because their policies and procedures and IT teams don't allow them to do anything official. So they need to dig deep into their hierarchies, pluck the people who are actually, of this era, who are getting work done, who are hacking it together, elevate them and elevate the use cases that make the biggest difference. That's one piece to it. The other piece to it is they need to be really careful about the gold mine feel or the gold rush feel around AI. So every very large enterprise company, Microsoft and Oracle and OpenAI now, a Salesforce, they're pushing every large organization to say, step number one is you need licenses for our AI tools for every single employee. And when you do the math, oh my God, it gets incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it's not feasible.
And it seems stupid. You got to be targeted, precision-oriented, focus on the use cases, and then build back from there. That's what my suggestion for a business leader would be.
That's awesome. We love it.
Absolutely.
You preach it to the choir. You could see if folks were watching, if you're listening and you're not watching, you would see a lot of shining heads bobbing right now.
Like, if that's the conversation we have all the time with clients and with prospects, who do get hung up, obviously, on some of the more esoteric stuff, or they're just kind of afraid to do anything. They're not sure. The conversation is all about use cases and being practical and finding those points of impact. Speaking about being practical, this, I guess, might be a good segue for a brief conversation about the book. You're here. I think in some ways you're still on your tour promoting the book. So let's give you a couple of minutes to talk about the book, Marketing with AI for Dummies. Obviously not written for dummies or for people who don't want to be dummies, which I guess is in keeping with our theme of all the stupid things you might do as they relate to AI. What are some of the big takeaways that a marketer would get if they've read your book?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I just want to mention something else really quickly. So Greg and Geoff, I want to give you guys a shout out because you both created an awesome list of use cases in marketing that I know you shared at the ANA AI Summit last summer. And that was so awesome to ground people into how AI was being used and, what it means in the context of marketing. So thank you for all the great work that you both are doing for the industry as well with the ANA and Michael Donnelly.
Appreciate it.
Now coming to the book itself. So the book is divided into two main parts. The first is a fundamental education on AI. If you want to be a marketer in the AI era, you need to understand AI. And it's not that difficult, but you need to take time out and you need to read those chapters. And once you understand what is machine learning, what is reinforcement learning, what does it mean to be human in the loop, all of those different pieces, what is the history of AI, how we've gone from supervised to unsupervised training, etc., it'll give you a better sense of how to use AI. So that's the first part of the book. The second part is breaking down what AI means in the context of each of the different sub-functions of marketing. So through the lens of SEO, what can you do with AI right now? With what tools and how it will change the performance of your pages on your corporate site. When it comes to performance marketing and Google's Performance Max or Meta's Advantage Plus offering, how does that change? Who is doing it well? What are the great case studies out there? When it comes to how you do strategy and planning or research, it unpacks each of the sub-functions or the activities within marketing and layers on, when you look at it through an AI frame, with the right tools, the right technologies, how your processes change, how your work changes, what the outcomes to be expected, and what are some of the case studies of companies that are doing well. And then the last piece is how you as an organization needs to change, how you think about team, budgets, processes, the wiring it all together. So it brings that all in one.
That's pretty awesome.
All
Where can people get it?
So here it is. I feel I have to point to it again.
Those are the only 4 copies in the world.
Only 4 copies. No, just kidding. It's published by Wiley. It's part of the Dummy series. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all major physical bookstores as well.
There you go. All the usual suspects, folks. Go out and get it.
Excellent. And where can folks find you, Shiv, if they want to connect?
So probably the best place is either on LinkedIn or my Substack. Just go to savvymatters.com. I publish a weekly Substack on marketing and business with AI, and I'm Shiv at savvymatters.com.
That's good. And we'll make sure to put a recommendation on our Substack to your Substack so people follow easily.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, so before everyone's head explodes, including mine, from all this good stuff, why don't we wrap it up? Thank you, Shiv, for joining us. It's been fantastic. If you are willing to indulge us, we would love to have you back at some point. We'll allow you to recover, of course, before we start scheduling, but we would love to have you back. There's probably 100 different things we can talk about in even just 100 days. This is a space that obviously moves so quickly, and your work in the space, you're thinking about the space is just invaluable. So thank you for joining us, and hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me on, and thanks
You're
for
awesome,
the kind
man.
words.
I'll send you my cauliflower recipe too.
I'll send you my Nordic death metal demo.
I'm not so sure about
that. All right, ladies and
I'll
gentlemen.
put my AI girlfriend on tube mode.
Maybe we should get her to do the outro. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the No Brainer podcast with Shiv Singh, who was amazing. And I hope your head is spinning like mine is too after this fantastic conversation. We'll put links to his book, to his Substack, into the show notes, as well as LinkedIn profile. And in addition to that, we do really appreciate it if you punch the like button, share the episode, give us feedback, comment. Also, I didn't mention it in the intro, but if you feel so compelled, please do go to the No Brainer podcast website and send us an email. We take feedback. We also do mailbag episodes when people are so inclined. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Have a great day.